Are we gonna get you wouldn't steal a car?
You wouldn't steal a person.
Called it. You wouldn't steal a VTuber. This one is called The Lost Media Graveyard. You guys remember when we watched the cryptid video by Big Tugg? I found another one that looked interesting.
Hello, children. Welcome to the fantabulous
Any children in the chat? Wash your hands.
world of Extra Tugg, full of educational and children-friendly content. That's definitely what this is, so come on in. It's only $4 a month, and it's a lot of fun perks. Chris, why would you put that on the screen? You're ruining it. You're ruining it for everybody.
The 21st century.
Shout out to his editor.
Never once have we ever had this much media at our fingertips. Without even leaving the
Chris is
house,
to be
you can
polite, but we
experience
never have a
practically
choice.
anything through your beautiful little phones. From the greatest symphonies, to the finest cinemas, to boobs. So many boobs you can see. And also extratug.com. Not
Chat, keep it together.
as good as boobs, but I have to pitch it at
Keep
least
it
once in a
together.
video. But it wasn't always like this. Just a few decades ago, music fans and film buffs sank thousands of dollars into their collections of tapes, discs, and slightly different sized tapes.
Hot Fuzz! Best movie ever! Ah! Heck yeah! Chad, have you guys seen the movie Hot Fuzz?
Tapes and discs. The earliest record player, the phonograph, was invented in
Dang it, Chris.
1877 and was the first time humans could enjoy recorded music at home. Before then, the only way you could hear music is by buying a piano and then buying a guy who could play the piano. And it's not cool to buy a guy.
Is that Chris Pratt?
But it was the time. Surprisingly,
Chris
the
Pratt?
journey from home pianos to crank-operated record players to handheld streaming devices only took a little over a century. And all we have to show for it is just a bunch of empty Circuit Cities, almost empty Best Buys, and just a bunch of liminal spaces that we don't know
Everyone's
what to do
Chris
with
Pratt,
anymore.
even
But as
me.
quickly as it came and went, physical media is back from the dead as a new generation discovers the joys of forgotten formats. So my Tugglets, it's time to dust off them stereos and them VCRs. Today,
Does Chad even know what a VCR is? We talk boomer stuff all the time here on stream, but does Chad know? Buy a guy. So Toasties, when you're a wealthy landowner, you buy a bunch of peoples for your oubliette to write your poems and play the piano. Join me in my artist basement. I still have a VCR. Let's go. That T-shirt
we're
is
gonna
wild.
dig through the best and worst
Deal.
relics of the media age. I don't know if that's a term. Are we in the media age? That would make sense.
Whoa. This makes me feel
To
so
begin,
old.
nowadays, streaming is the #1 way most people enjoy TV and movies. 88% of US households subscribe to at least one streaming service, with each one fighting for your attention and cold hard cash by just being a little bit better than the worst one, in an industry that is currently worth $129 billion. But
Consider some of them now also run ads. They've come full circle.
this is just the latest battle in a long tradition of home entertainment
Can it
warfare.
rewind you?
Because before the
Just
streaming
there.
wars were there was the video format wars. Grandpa remembers. Grandpa, do you remember the wars? Did you die? The war between VHS and Betamax came to define the first half of the 1980s, but it actually started in the 70s. Sony debuted the Betamax video cassette recorder, known as the VCR, holy shit, that's what that stands for, I never knew that, in 1975. It cost a whopping $2,495, which amounts to like
Beautiful. Look at that
$15,000
break.
when adjusted for inflation. So just for the cost of a 2019 gently used Toyota Yaris, you could have watching movies at home. Sounds like a good deal. A year later, JVC
But don't you have to watch the movies? Wait, buy the movies too?
hit the market with their cheaper VHS version, which only cost around $1,000. So in today's money, that's like a heavily used Toyota Yaris. Those cars last, though. Everyone should look into the Yaris. What a good little car. Over the next decade, the two formats would battle
It
for
was
entertainment
sponsored by
supremacy.
Toyota.
Betamax held the upper hand in video and sound quality, while the inferior VCR had, a better price point and longer recording times. By 1980, the VHS had captured nearly 60%
What you got there? G.I. Joe Transformers?
of the North American market. They were cheaper, rental stores stocked more VHS than the other one, and the format also offered a lot more, boobs. We were talking about boobs earlier, and it was more boob focused. Ask anyone who was around in the 80s and 90s, and they'll tell you about the weird curtained off rooms.
You guys remember Friends? I'm watching Friends for the first time this year.
The topics that I talk about on X-Ray Tugg, and why did I say X-Ray Tugg? X-Ray, read all about it. Why did I f that up so bad? And Betamax just couldn't keep up. Couldn't stroke as fast. And 1988 had Sony waving the white flag when it produced its first VHS VCR. Wow, first Betamax, then the Berlin Wall. Both equally relevant in the 80s. Both huge moments in human history. Moving on to the next era of physical media wars, and to be honest, this one wasn't much of a war. More of a skirmish. Laserdisc came out in 1978, just 2 years after the VHS. Originally marketed as Laserdisco, which is such a more fun name.
It was an adult film?
Chris, make this fun. Make what I'm doing fun.
Wow!
working? The Laserdisc
Chris is
was like the
putting in
unholy
extra
love child
hours.
of a vinyl record and a CD. The sound and
Oh my
video
god!
quality
Oh my god! You guys remember those mini CDs? What happened to them?
were both better than anything else on the market, but the discs were expensive, bulky, and needed to be flipped like an actual vinyl record, which is crazy. Also, the size of these things, Chris, put like I'm one human size and then put the disc next to me. That's a big disc. Laserdisc managed to stay in production until about 2001 thanks to its use in karaoke bars, but by 1997, DVDs were introduced and dominated. They weren't a huge step up from Laserdisc, but they were cheaper to produce and they weren't massive, so you could find an easy place to store them. And then a big boy player decided to back a winner. That's right, the video format war equivalent to a WMD, the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 was released in
World's best DVD player.
2000 with DVD compatibility, making its $299 price tag a steal because most DVD players at the time were going for like $400, $500. I don't know how PS2 did this. The PS2 would go on to be the highest selling console of all time. It sold like 160 million units, and it helped DVD sales peak in 2005 at over 16 billion. But the year after DVD sales hit their record, a new war started to take shape. What a war. Human. We can't stop it. In 2009, both HD DVDs and Blu-rays were released. Toshiba and Microsoft both backed
Do people still buy Blu-rays? I don't think it was ever this big in my circles, but then I don't own any either, and I have the PlayStation that plays them.
HD DVD, while Blu-ray had support of Sony, Philips, Apple, Panasonic. Chris, edit out that
regular
little
show. We
pause.
can't watch
Jesus
regular
Christ,
show
don't
on
let people
TV.
know I'm
and
stupid. Can't memorize 2
like
seconds
sued
of a
off the
script. The two
internet.
formats were practically identical. The only difference being Blu-ray's slightly higher storage space and HD DVD players costing nearly half as much. This also happened to be the time where anti-piracy ads were everywhere, and they went hard as Chris.
Are we gonna get You Wouldn't Steal a Car?
You wouldn't steal a person.
Called it. You wouldn't steal a VTuber.
Would ya?
Grandma! Oh shit.
Some people think security measures helped tip the scales in Blu-ray's favor, especially as studios saw the pirated movies flooding file-sharing sites as an existential threat. It helped also that Sony once again threw its weight around by including a Blu-ray drive in the PlayStation 3. By mid-2007, Blu-ray was outselling HD DVD by 200%. I literally don't even remember HD DVD ever being a thing. I remember they were red and Blu-ray was blue. That's all I remember. And in 2008, Toshiba announced it would cease HD DVD player production. It was a decisive victory for Blu-ray. Okay, so the video wars were a tough time for this country, but the music formats had to be the toughest time for consumers. Today, over 100 million Americans pay for music streaming services like Spotify, and in 2024 alone,
then that's at least $100 million for Spotify ads.
4.8 trillion songs were streamed globally. But kicking out the jams
Blu-ray's
used to
still
require a
thing?
little
Who
bit more than a
buys these?
Bluetooth connection or a dang aux cord. It required a constant carousel of formats that, for some reason, all seemed to break if you played them more than once. It was a disaster. Let's start off with the humble vinyl, the thing that your homie still collects in the most douchebaggery of ways. The first 12-inch vinyl LP was made by Columbia Records in 1948. It used the same technological advances in frequency recording that the Royal Navy used to track submarines during World War II. And what
At home?
was this absolute banger of an album that bridged the gap between generations listening to music forever? It was Mendelssohn's Concerto in E minor by the New York Philharmonic. Okay, that's kind of sucks. But to be fair, back then music was not good. It was 1948. What do you expect? The ensuing decade saw an explosion of musical creativity and innovations in recording techniques. It culminated with Vinyl's peak in 1977 when 300...
Did you guys see that? That was those VTubers. That was beasties.
44 million records were sold in the US. Of course, there were a lot of
ancient,
problems
but
with
aren't they
records, and
pretty?
honestly more problems than positives that came with these flimsy little wax things. For one, they're extremely fragile. Even a little bit of dust could make a record skip. And even playing a record too often would make it degrade to the point beyond repair, which makes sense. If you think about it, if you use anything too much, it should break. But like, I hate the fact that you could listen to music so much that you ruin it. That sucks so bad. Plus, each side of the album could only hold around 22 minutes of music, so you were constantly getting up to flip the record over. Records were obviously destined to fail. It's wax with grooves that required a diamond needle to play. It's witchcraft, and witchcraft should always fail. One of the
Okay, no fun allowed.
biggest drawbacks was its portability. It's a big bitch that you put in the corner of the room. So 8-track tapes tried to fix this in 1964. Bill Lear, the inventor of the Learjet, which was one of the first private jets ever commercially available, kind of a douchebag name. I hate when people name things after themselves, especially with a name like Lear. Relax. But he developed...
It's really a shame that my real life name is Candace. I can never name anything Candace.
8 tracks with the help of companies like Ford, GM, Ampex,
Tragic.
RCA, and Motorola. You know, the manufacturing Avengers. You get them together, the world's gonna change. And soon, many other car companies followed suit.
And it's so
and
nice
it
to
was
have, but they have
banging
more
to have an
hassle than
8-track in
anything
your whip.
real.
Everyone into hoopty, you gotta have an 8-track. But much like everything else, soon they were immediately obsolete. Sorry you spent all that money on that 6th station, but we gotta keep pushing. It was probably because of the tiny drawback that they were super fragile and terrible. Truly nothing about the 8-track was good for music fans. Their
I've
sound
never even
quality
heard
was
of that
inferior
before.
to vinyl, and the tapes were really sensitive to heat and they would warp. And what gets really hot in the summer? Is any other fellow toddlers out there? The car seat. And even though you now had some freedom
Chat,
to
you
choose
would
your
know.
own music, you couldn't rewind an 8-track. You had to sit around and wait for it to loop. But 8 tracks
Do they still
had
make
rivals.
car radios
Their
the same
skinnier,
way?
sexier cousins,
Like a
the
ham?
cassette player. Cassettes and 8 tracks shared a few years of overlap, but once Sony released the Walkman in 19...
Okay, where are my boomers at? Who used to have one of these? Because I'm on that boat. I feel really old, but these are so cool.
79, it was all over. Cassettes were not only easy to listen to on the go, but they had the ability to rewind. You could go back, use a pencil eraser, spin that bitch. Also, the next time you get mad at your parents for not understanding what AI is or how to use Alexa, the biggest advancement in music technology they lived through was the concept of rewinding. They're fucking old. Give them a break. So that
I feel so old. Joseph Joestar has a Walkman. I had one. Hey, ancient timing in. My mom has a few cassette tapes. I actually went through my cassette collection the other day because I still have a few that I kept. That's right. Unbreakable. I used to record my studies. Didn't give me good grades, but did you have fun? Did you? Marin, good to see you. Welcome in.
That, coupled with the prominence of the dual cassette deck boombox, tapes took on a life of their own. Music fans could create duplicates of their favorite albums, make mixtapes of their favorite songs, or literally go to any concert and hold up a cassette player and hit record, and then just make a bootleg tape of your favorite band. You could just do that. By 1990, $3.5 billion of cassettes were sold in the US. But the format would shockingly fall from grace extremely fast, and by 2003, they were practically non-existent. Again, this was because of one absolutely itty-bitty tiny flaw, and that was the fact that they would degrade the more you listen to them, because they have magnetic tape, and it wouldn't work it was bad. Or sometimes it would unspool and become unplayable, which sucks if you'd play for something and then all of a sudden it would puke its guts out, and then you just have a bunch of fun ribbon to play with.
I've had cassettes for like redacted amount of years, and I've never had one do that. I've like taken one apart like this before, but I've never had one like explode on me.
But to qualm all my worries came the CDs. When CDs were introduced in 1982, they were the answer to nearly all the drawbacks of previous musical formats. We finally had something that would make sense to listen to. While audiophiles might look down on the CD's digital format, it was designed to exceed the hearing capabilities of the human ear. These discs represent the best audio humans can distinguish without formal training. So not only did they sound great, but they held tons of music on these puppies. While originally designed to hold up to an hour of jams, the disc diameter was increased to accommodate a complete recording of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. So sadly, classical music changes the format once again. I wish they would stop. I wish they would stop so I don't have to keep talking.
What's wrong with classical music? Magnetic tape actually lasts a very long time when stored properly. Rip cassettes at that point. Dude. It's only like cassette tapes, but you could hear the clack as they change tracks. Whoa!
About Beethoven and his deaf ass. By the 90s, CDs were the default format for most consumers, peaking in 2000 with $13.2 billion in revenue. And honestly,
those things where they said skip protect, but it didn't protect jack sheet.
CDs are kind of the gold standard.
How
they
did
weren't
little
replaced by a
Volvo come
superior format, they
Watching
were
a boomer
replaced by
video.
convenience and a digital
like
that
me.
was just a click of a button instead of buying a CD. They were the best of the best. We are just lazy. If that makes sense. Of course, they weren't without their drawbacks, which mostly involved the case. CDs came in jewel cases that would easily...
Did you guys not have that stackable thing where you could put them on a little... If you made your own CDs, where you put CDs nuts, where you put them on a little standee and you can fit like 50 and then put a cover over them? Or those flip books?
Chip, scratch, and even shatter. I remember being a dumb child and taking a CD case and bending it backwards and watching all of the pieces of plastic explode all over me in the back seat of my dad's car. I even remember the album. It was Forever Blue by what's his name? What a wicked game we play. Chris, put him up. What's his name? Maybe did a bad thing. Chris Isaac, there we go. But even CDs could get damaged after repeated listenings with something called disc rot. Disc rot is what happens when chemicals deteriorate the surface of a CD, making it unreadable by the laser. So, okay, again, we want to listen to our music. So how is it that they keep giving us formats that are doomed to fail? I guess that's life, right? A slow march to our own demise. God, that's dark, but it's music, baby. Nirvana. Of course, none of these issues led to the downfall of CDs. It was MP3s and file sharing that eventually decimated the market. In the US, sales of CDs eventually fell 95% from the year 2000 peak as music piracy and digital downloads dominated how we listened to music in the 2010s. But you might think Betamax and 8-tracks were some of the most doomed to fail kinds of media consumption you could be a part of, but that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to obsolete media. Some of them put up a good fight, but many of them were practically dead on arrival. I don't know how much we could put in of the Fall Out Boy song Dead on Arrival, so Chris, play as much of Dead on Arrival by Fall Out Boy we can before we get demonetized. Thank you. That wasn't worth the bit at all. Don't even have to put that in. Which brings me to my next segment, a little game I like to call Which Lasted Longer. We're bringing back game shows. I'm going to describe a physical media format and a dumb thing, and you're going to guess in the comments or write just out loud to whoever's next to you which one you think lasted longer. It's going to be a fun game. We're going to have fun. To begin, we're going to start with the mini disc. That's a real thing that existed. I bet you didn't know that.
I was in the way, but it's like a tiny
In 1992, these were essentially a mix between a cassette tape, CD, and a floppy disk. They were primarily made to replace the recording capabilities of a cassette with the durability of a CD. The mini disc tried to bridge the gap between analog tape duplication and digital technology, but ultimately only appealed to tech-savvy consumers and never really took off. Also, for what it's worth, this is stupid. This
looks beautiful. What are you talking about? A Frankenstein of a thing?
A stupid little thing. So, what lasted longer? The mini disc or America's involvement in the Vietnam War? Jesus Christ, that's dark. One is a dumb little format for music. One redefined American culture for forever. My guess is Vietnam. Let's find out together. Survey says the mini disc. How is that possible? America was in Vietnam for 19 years and 5 months, which is a long time, but I assumed longer. And it looks like the last mini disc players were manufactured in 2013, giving...
What? Knew it? Really? I didn't know it lasted 19 years. That's crazy. But also, mini discs still around? Chat, let's buy like 20 of them. Mini disc is stronger. Who would win?
The format a lifespan of 21
GameCube and
years.
PSP
So we're all
use the mini
stupid.
disc.
I'm sorry for misleading you that hard, but let's move on to
Portable.
our next contestant. Digital Video Express. What is this, you ask? Better known as DivX, it was a DVD-based rental format created by Circuit City in June of 1998.
Circuit City.
The big idea behind these discs were that they were basically a different version of renting videos. Customers would buy the discs from Circuit City for $4.99, and after 2 days, the disc would become unplayable. The only real upside here would be that you didn't have to worry about coming back to bring back your rentals. But
the frick, why though? Why?
The benefits paled in comparison to the disadvantages. One, you needed a dedicated player to play a DivX, which is stupid as hell, and it needed an internal modem, which would allow DivX to read a credit card, authorize viewings, and also track your viewing habits. Who the f wants any of that in a DVD player? Consumers had immediate concerns over DivX machines' widespread access to their information.
What if you buy it and then you forget to watch it, and then you just never got to see it?
Because obviously, and making matters worse, Sony and Warner refused to release their movies on DivX to protect the growing DVD market. So, what lasted longer? DivX or Avril Lavigne's marriage to Nickelback singer Chad Kroeger?
They were married?
Which one do you think? Well, even though celebrity romances are usually doomed from the start, I'm gonna give it to Avril Lavigne and Chad Kroeger. Up that name, but I would assume, I mean, look at them. Match made in heaven. I didn't even know they were together at one point, so hopefully it lasted longer than the DivX. And survey says...
They're not still married?
Big Tugg's right. You doubted me. Some of you dipshits. I could see it in the comments down there. Tucker, that definitely the DivX lasted longer. You're f***ing stupid and ugly. Lavigne and Kroeger managed to keep the flame alive for 2 years, and DivX only lasted a year before Circuit City pulled the plug. Those DVDs would come and some of them wouldn't even work, and it's crazy that you would have chemicals that would ruin a CD, and also the amount of waste you're just making for no reason? Crazy. All right, move.
Yeah, why the frick was that a thing?
The UMD for the PSP. I love the PSP. I'm sad they didn't keep doing those. When PSP was released in December of 2004, Sony thought it would use the same strategy as the PS2 and PS3 and create widespread adoption of a new media format, the Universal Media Disc, aka the UMD. Since the PSP was a handheld device, I don't think their goal was to replace DVDs more than it was to make the PSP feel like a home console in the palm of your hand. Still, hundreds of movie titles were released for the UMD, even though standalone players were never created. which seems like a bad
You're just watching all your
decision financially.
PSP.
This
What's
was
wrong with
purely a
that?
way for gamers to watch movies on the go. Because the product was inferior, the UMD offered fewer features that DVDs did at the same price. And while the UMD and the PSP came out of the gate strong, with most major film companies releasing their titles on the format, it quickly
Why does
crashed
he have
because
such big
studios were
hands?
not making their money back. And
Game Boy
obviously
Advance and movies?
In 2006, Universal and Paramount pulled their support of the format, spelling the beginning of the end for the UMD.
Oh.
So, what lasted longer, the UMD or Barack Obama's presidency? Obama had 2 terms. PSP seemed pretty much
8
destined
years?
to fail. Gotta go with Obama here. Gotta go with Obama. Always gotta go with Obama. It looks like December 2011 release of Hangover Part 2 was the
Hangover?
last UMD title, giving the format a 7-year lifespan. Obama for the win. Always bet on the Obama. Okay, for the final.
There's 7 years worth of movies on UMD discs out there. You can bring a PlayStation Portable on a flight. Anybody want to watch 7 years worth of movies on the UMD with me? On an airplane? Perhaps? Still have to play Peace Walker. CEX here has so many of them on the shelf. Nobody buys them. They're gonna be like 50p. Or... Chat, I have a mission. See you in the next short video where I buy a million UMDs and watch all of the content. 7 years worth of flight as well. I was able to watch some videos on my MP3 player. Gonna see if I still have that player laying around. Let's go.
We're busting out one of
Movie
the
on a
weirdest,
small
most obscure
screen.
formats ever. Hit clips. Not mini clip, not that game. We're talking about hit clips. Honestly, calling these
Oh my god, I miss these so much. You could get these at like McDonald's. That's right, McDonald's used to sell plastic toys. That's true, children. Sorry your childhood sucks. These are so good. You get like a clip of a song. Certain minimal amounts. What is
the media
that?
format is a little misleading. These were keychains that played music. Essentially, toys just trying to capitalize on the bubblegum Y2K era vibe. Tiger Electronics introduced hit clips in 1999, which were tiny memory cards on a key ring that featured a minute-long clip of a song. You couldn't even hear the full song, just a clip of the chorus. Dog.
$2 for
Again,
food
I
and
know this was
toys.
for kids, but it does feel a little unnecessary to put training wheels on music. But as you might expect, most of Hit Clip's offerings were from pop artists like NSYNC, Britney Spears, and the Backstreet Boys. And for what they were, they sold pretty well. They moved 300 million units. Sorry, 30 million. 30 million. Okay. That was a little bit too much. I should have known. So, what lasted
Don't they
longer? Hit
still?
Clips or Carson Daly's run on MTV? You kids even know who
I don't know who
Carson
these
Daly
are.
is? Carson Daly was an iconic
How did you know that? I don't know who any of these celebrities are.
host on MTV during the Hit Clip era. And I don't know, I'm thinking his popularity is too big for someone who was just on to MTV for a year or two. So I'm gonna say Carson Daly's run on MTV
That
lasted
plays
longer than Hit Clip.
music.
That's what I'm thinking. And according to
They
my
can't
notes,
hear it
Daly
'cause
started
you're
on
brushing your
MTV in 1997 and left in 2003, so it looks like he beat out Hit Clip by 2 years. They were in production from 1999 to 2003. I'm kind of bummed that I've guessed pretty much all of these right. So there we go. Let me know what you
I think I might still have
got
one
in the
of
comments
these.
down below, and if you got all of them right, you get a Hit Clip in the mail. Chris, put up a disclaimer that I'm lying, but you get a Hit Clip in the mail. Look, I get that physical media is kind of weird. Formats can be clunky, take up space, and even kind of smell, you know, like an old basement. But for some people, that's part of the charm. Holding the actual artifact and interacting with the media can create deeper connections, and sometimes the imperfections of an old tape adds to its appeal. It's like the rings
also
of a
Metal
tree,
Gear?
giving a palpable sense of time to the media and telling the story of
Because
those
the
who
editor
used
likes
it
Metal
before.
Gear.
And in some cases, older formats of media can provide a better experience than the ones we deal with today. Of course, I'm not saying you have to turn your living room into a blockbuster video, but
But what if I could?
before we completely discard the
Hit
past,
clips.
it's important to consider what
Those
could mean
Death
for the quality
Stranding?
of our future. Buy physical media, because now there is no way to
Death
watch,
Stranding.
I think, that you can't watch Courage the Cowardly Dog anymore. You can't watch it. It's not on any streaming platform. Protect cartoons. Buy some DVDs of cartoons, because they are taking those away from us like crazy. It's important
Yeah, why is it always cartoons that get hit? It's so hard to find
to
some
have
of the
physical
older
media.
stuff.
At least one of you, so you can upload it to the internet for us when they take it away from us and we can pirate it. New videos every Saturday and sometimes Wednesday. Like, comment,
That's
and
worth my
subscribe
life.
to all of those things. Check out Extra Tugg, $4 a month.
Hey, that was a good boomer deep dive chat. Did you enjoy it? Yippee! I feel a million years older now. Subscribe!